I would like to introduce our presenter, Kathy Isaac. Kathy is an expert in cybersecurity operations leadership with more than 2 decades of experience in the private, public, and nonprofit sectors. She is both a certified information systems security professional, a project management professional, and has her executive MBA from the Ivy School of Business at Western University. She also holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in computer science and mathematics from the University of Toronto. Throughout her career, Kathy has developed an intimate familiarity with different data types and organizational structures, which has resulted in critical context that allows her to best support customer engagements, particularly as companies mature their security philosophy and posture. Her passion for cybersecurity extends far beyond her certifications and professional experience. This year, she was recognized by IT World Canada as one of Canada's top women in cybersecurity, and she's an active member of the Canadian Cybersecurity Network Advisory Board. In her role as VP of Customer Success, Kathy's customer-centric approach ensures that customer timelines and objectives are balanced with building a sustainable foundation of security best practices. As a leader, Kathy believes in mentoring and empowering others to take initiative in creating their own success. She's passionate about creating opportunities for underprivileged youth and supporting women in STEM, and is active in the community as a speaker and as a board member at Urban Promise Toronto. So please join me in welcoming our speaker, Kathy Isaac.
Thank you, Alyssa. Thanks so much. I'm happy to see so many people have joined the call today. So what we're covering today is some of the common misconceptions that we tend to hear when it comes to cybersecurity. In the past 2 years, security has risen to the top of technology priorities for many SMBs. And so many have had to double their security budgets just to get things right. Most people want to get it done quickly, and a variety of vendor solutions promise to help you put security on autopilot. Now, this idea sounds great in theory, but in reality, these types of solutions provide a bare minimum checklist of steps for achieving regulatory compliance. Adopting a compliance-focused mindset takes the focus of building good security and creates what we like to refer to as security debt. And I'll talk more about what we mean when we use the term security debt. And this just gets worse over time. So falling prey to these misconceptions can cause serious drawbacks in your company's road to security, privacy, and compliance. And it has direct impacts on your business's ability to scale, operate efficiently, and even to win deals and to continue growing. So we're just going to talk more about what that means, what the impacts to these misconceptions are, and how we can work around them. So the first one, compliance equals security. Now, compliance plays an important role in mitigating your company's risks, but meeting compliance doesn't mean that you're prepared to defend against threat actors. Regulations that are out there, they exist for a reason, and they're simply the lowest benchmarks or the basic standards that you must meet. And often these are industry specific. Compliance steps, on the other hand, don't go far enough to provide robust security. And in our constantly evolving threat environment, that can be damaging. Many compliance programs allow the business to decide the scope of the assessment. ISO 27001, for example, great framework to use, but that's more of a security management standard. And some would say it's not a security standard in itself. So achieving compliance doesn't mean that you're without risk, that you've covered all your bases when it comes to risk. So while compliance frameworks are well respected, each compliance program comes with its own set of critics who can make valid points against the strength of the program. The only real way around this is building a holistic security program. Holistic security helps you implement best practices and robust controls that support your business goals and your growth. A holistic security program ensures your organization is prepared for cyber attacks and protects data privacy. So when you build a robust security program, compliance should be a byproduct. Your program should be able to demonstrate that you've both implemented security controls that protect customer data and that you have an operational ISMS in place to manage that on a continuing basis. When you've done those things correctly, compliance should just follow easily. Unrealistically fast outcomes. I mean, this is one that we face on a day-to-day basis here at Carbide. Gotta let you know, you cannot gain SOC 2 or any other framework compliance for that matter in just a few weeks. Fast outcomes are the result of implementing bare minimums to mark off compliance checkboxes rather than creating a robust program through a thoughtful process. I've had customers literally ask me this exact question. What's the minimum that I need to do to achieve compliance? Well, there's a few key problems with that type of thinking. First, keep in mind that your auditor is a human person with an opinion, and it's often obvious to your auditor that you've done the bare minimum. And if you haven't put in what they think you need to get to a good, clean program, you may find that you've wasted your time and effort and that you end up doing a lot of rework to get to that compliance goal that you're trying to meet. The other thing you want to take into consideration is that certifications expire. Yes, they have different timeframes and you can get up to 3 years on like an ISO 27001. However, in order to maintain your certification, you need to do continuous audits. You need to be reviewing your program on a regular basis. So even if you do get through on the bare minimum the first time around, it's not likely that you'll be able to maintain that certification on just the bare minimum. And the third thing I really want you to consider when we talk about unrealistically fast outcomes is that your risks are real. They're not imaginary. We're not making them up. We're not, being all doom and gloom. There are real risks out there. The bare minimum doesn't mitigate your risks, and only a robust security program can do that. So building a security program means understanding your current state and starting there. This includes understanding your risks and the threats that you're facing. It means making decisions that are in the best interest of your customers and your business. And it means implementing controls, and these can be technical, administrative, or even physical controls in order to mitigate those risks and threats and to protect your customer data. That's not going to happen in a couple of weeks. There is no easy button. Next, thinking one and done. Okay, so congratulations. You've had a successful audit. You've achieved your certification. That's great news. You deserve to and should celebrate this. Go ahead and update all your marketing collateral, post it on your website, post it, on your socials, pat yourself on the back. Your time and effort has paid off. But achieving compliance once is not the end of the road. When we talk about making security and privacy part of your company's DNA, we're talking about adding it into your company's culture, which prepares you to meet current and future compliance requirements. And we'll talk more about company culture and how security has an impact there. Your security team needs to meet on a regular basis, assessing the changes in your business and within the security landscape in general. And as your business grows, you need to continuously assess your tools and your processes to ensure that they're still sufficient to protect your customer data. Bad actors are not looking at the fact that you have a compliance certification badge on your website and moving on. They're constantly evolving their practices, which means you need to constantly evolve your program. Seeing security as an IT problem, now I think most of us should be past this one at this point, but we know that bad actors target authorized user accounts. This is something we know. What that means, though, is that every single person in your organization, including your contractors, has a responsibility when it comes to privacy and security. A security-driven culture is key to a strong information posture, and this starts at the top of the organization. Your leadership needs to establish a security-focused mission and vision for the organization. That team also needs to make sure they're providing appropriate support and resources for security and privacy programs, including budget, and ensuring that compliance with internal security policies are being monitored and managed. This means that your security team should be meeting with your leadership on a regular basis, maybe once a quarter, to give a status update on the security program and to be asking for budget and resources for whatever's next in the roadmap. Security and privacy awareness training is also integral to establishing a culture of security. Adopting role-based learning helps employees keep security and privacy top of mind. And that's really what you want to do with security and privacy awareness training. You're not trying to create security experts. You're just trying to keep security top of mind for your staff so that they're always on the lookout for potential attacks. Every person on your team, from the founders and leaders to frontline employees, shares the responsibility for maintaining security with the right tools and the right processes in place. Grow now, secure later. So I had a customer once mid-implementation come and tell me that they wanted to put their security and privacy implementation on pause since it was no longer a priority for their CEO or their board. They were too busy growing, and they found that not having good security and privacy wasn't stopping them from winning deals. They couldn't spare the resources that were required to continue building it. Not 2 weeks later, the same customer came back and said, well, how quickly can we get this done? What happened in that period of time was that they ended up looking at what would be their biggest deal yet and would open the door to enterprise for them. But this potential customer needed them to respond to a security questionnaire to close the deal, and they recognized that they didn't have a lot of these things in place. Now refer back to myth number 2. There's no easy button, and it's not going to happen in just a few weeks. So not having good security can and will eventually stop you from growing your business. This is where security debt comes from. What we mean by that is instead of building good security as you build your business, you end up needing to backtrack, to plug holes with Band-Aid fixes in order to meet customer requirements. And over time, those holes get bigger and bigger, and those fixes are weaker and weaker. Your security debt eventually piles up. And as the business grows, the lack of a security foundation creates bigger hurdles for you to get over. You can just rely on your cloud vendor's security. Another thing that I've heard from customers. I hear this all the time. We know popular cloud platforms like Azure or AWS, they don't ensure your data privacy and security is taken care of. That is not their job. The shared responsibility model leaves all your policies up to you. While the vendor secures the infrastructure running on the platform, it's your company's responsibility to use the platform securely. They provide you with the tools to securely configure your environment, but it's up to you to set it up. So one example I have is backups, and I hear this often from customers. I had a customer tell me they don't need to worry about backups because they're on AWS. So I explained to that customer that backup is a policy-driven service that AWS offers, and that it all starts with a backup plan, and that they have to go in and configure and set up that plan. That as a security team, they need to make decisions about the types and frequency of those backups and what those retention periods for different types of data might look like. AWS isn't going to do this for you. So if you haven't already done so, take some time to look at your cloud provider's shared responsibility model. These are generally available online. Just Google your cloud provider and shared responsibility model, and you'll see what's involved. It's important that you understand where your vendor's responsibilities end and yours pick up. You can put your security on autopilot. This is one of my favorites. Personally, because I'm a techie. I love automation. I look for automation in my day-to-day work and in my day-to-day life. So let me share a personal story with you. I live in Toronto, and several years ago, a group of friends and I decided we wanted to go to dinner in Buffalo. It was my birthday, and there was a restaurant I really wanted to go to. So yes, it's a 2.5-hour drive or so, but it was my birthday, and I felt like it was worth the trip. So I was the designated driver that night, and on the way home, late in the night, I punched the home button on my GPS and just tried to enjoy the fun with my friends in the car on the way back. About 45 minutes into our trip home, one of my friends leaned over and was, hey, why haven't we hit the border yet? And this is when I took a look at my GPS and realized it had us on a 4-hour journey to get home. And it was taking us almost out of state to get back to Toronto, and that's not necessary. What happened was I have my GPS defaulted to avoid tolls because there's a toll road here in Toronto that if I don't have to take it, I don't need to take it. I'd rather work around it. So my default is avoid tolls. That particular evening, the next best non-toll route was under construction. And so not knowing that there had been changes in the environment, I hit that home button and let the GPS take me home. Where did I go wrong here? I wasn't aware of the changes in the environment. And after hitting that button, I didn't look at what route the GPS actually gave me. If I had just looked at the screen and seen that it would take 4 hours to get home, I would have known something was wrong. This is the same with your security program. Just because you have the latest tools in place doesn't mean that you can set it and forget it. You cannot achieve good security by putting it on autopilot. You need to be realistic about what it takes to truly boost security. Automating components of your security program can be a powerful tool. Like I said, I love the technology, I love automation. But you can only achieve true security when automation is combined with human expertise. and the right technology. Putting your entire security program on autopilot is a one-way ticket to disappointing your auditors and your security conscience. Human beings must be involved in regular review of the environment, to investigate and respond to incidents, and to do audits. Even in the best of scenarios, you should be conducting regular internal audits to validate that things are running as expected and that the outputs that you're getting actually make sense. Good security requires you to have a holistic approach that addresses the gaps that autopilot simply can't on its own. And those are our 7 myths. I'm hoping that you got something out of that, and that some of that resonated with you and is impactful. And I think we're opening it up to some questions now. I hand over to Alyssa for this.
All right, well, let's get started with some of our previously submitted questions. So you had mentioned already a little bit, Kathy, about people asking, what is the minimum amount of work I need to do to get through an audit or to stand up my program? Can you elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, of course. We do get this question quite often. Now, the minimum will depend very much on your business. And I know nobody likes the "it depends" answer, but that's the truth. It depends on your business. We can't make decisions for you, but we can guide you through how to make these decisions. What we like to tell customers is you need to really start with an assessment of your current business, right? We need to understand, what kind of data are you collecting? What are the current processes you have in place? Who are your customers? Where are your customers located? All of these need to be answered before you can decide how much work you need to do to get to compliance. The next best step after that, then, we would say, is do a risk assessment. Understand, what are the threats to your business? And this can be even based on the industry you're in, the location that you're in, the locations you're serving. So there's no simple answer. There's no, here's what SOC 2 asks for, just do these things and you're done. It doesn't work like that. You need to tailor it to meet your business needs and your customers' needs as well.
I know this is a question that you get a lot. How long will it take me to get SOC 2?
Yeah, again, it depends, right? Like, it does come down to who you are as a business and the amount of work that you've had to put in and what controls you have in place. I mentioned earlier on that, an auditor is a human being. That's a person with an opinion. And each auditor, depending on who they are and the kind of experience they have, may have different processes around how they want to attack the audit. And so it's very difficult to say how long that will actually take or what things they want to see. In terms of what you need to implement internally and how long that's going to take, well, that depends on how much work you already have in place. I think most of our customers, they come to us and they tell us, oh, we have no security program. And as we start working through it, we realize you actually do have some components already in place, just maybe not formal. And so you'll learn how much work you have to do by doing some of those assessments up front. Additionally, how committed is your organization to getting it done? How many resources have been assigned to it? What budget has been given to getting things done? So it's very difficult to say how long it's going to take, not understanding where you are as an organization to start with.
Great. Another one here. How does Carbide address the autopilot misconception?
Yeah, so we focus on that holistic approach that we talked about, right? So we're doing a mix of all of it. We want to talk to you about the tools that you're using, about the people on your team, and we actually address it from that perspective. We do want to use automation as much as possible. We do want to use technology where we can, but we understand some of that can be cost prohibitive as well. So we kind of take that approach when working with our customers to dive into the 3 things that we know in the technology world are important. That's the people, the processes, and the tools, rather than just focusing on the technology.
Great. We have a couple more previously submitted questions. Here's a good one. How do I know what framework to pursue first?
Great question. So this is actually a question I had this week from a customer. How do we know which one to pursue first? My first answer is always going to be, well, what are your customers asking me for? Because as a growing business, I think that's where you want to put your eyes, right? My customers want me to have this. Well, let's focus in on that and let's work on that so we can get you to that stage where you don't stop growing. We want you to continue. In addition to that, or if you don't have pressing demand, then we start talking about the resources and the long-term goals and where you want to go. Each of these frameworks are good, but they cover different areas. They do different things, achieve different objectives. And there's a lot of overlap between them. So often by achieving one or building a program that satisfies one, you're going to hit quite a few items on the other one as well. So you want to look at where you might have gaps and what you can get to sooner. For example, SOC 2 for a growing organization, SOC 2 would be easier to achieve. It's got fewer requirements and you can get to it sooner. However, the downside of SOC 2 is it's recognized more on the North American side. Over in Europe and other parts of the world, they're more interested in your ISO 27001 certification. So if that's where you're trying to sell to, then I would recommend focus on ISO 27001, which is a more robust, structured program, just so you can meet that requirement, those needs, and then maybe pop over to SOC 2. So again, it depends. These are conversations that we tend to have with customers about what's best for their business.
Great. And one more here. We're a startup. We have a small team with limited capacity. Where do we begin with building a security program?
Yeah. So as I'd mentioned earlier on in terms of the minimum, definitely start with doing a current state assessment. What do we have in place? Who are our customers? Where are our customers? What regulations apply to us as a business? What data are we collecting? Start documenting these things, building asset lists and understanding what technology you have and which third parties are using. So start with that. And then from there, you will have what you need to do a risk assessment. So doing a risk assessment is something that we can help you with at Carbide, but it helps to understand just where you are. What are my priorities? Don't know? Do a risk assessment and you will quickly and easily be able to see where your red flags are, what's on fire, what needs to be handled quickly. You'll be able to identify from there your low-hanging fruit. You'll be able to understand where you're going to need budget, where you're going to need additional resources. So definitely, those are the two things I would say do first is understand your current state, whether through an asset management, audits, internal audits, that sort of thing, and then do a risk assessment. So as I mentioned at Carbide, these are things we can help you with. At Carbide, we understand what security is for small businesses, for startups, and we understand how it can drive or halt the growth of your business. And so the platform itself is designed in that way to allow you to make decisions about what to do next and how to build and grow your security program. And then we have a team of experts that work alongside that platform to help guide and give some direction and to help you with tools and templates that we have to help you actually complete the requirements for certification. So I'll hand it over to her. She'll talk a little bit more about what's coming up next and how maybe you can set up a demo with Carbide.
Absolutely. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here. If anyone is interested in booking a demo or connecting with our team to learn more about how we can help you, feel free to reach out, and we look forward to seeing you at our next webinar.